We begin today with President Trump's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, who is in our New York broadcast studio this morning. Mr. Mayor, thank you for joining us. The president told CBS News earlier this month he still wants to speak to special counsel Robert Mueller. So when, where, what format?
Well, you know, we've kind of been distracted on all kinds of things, starting with Peter Strzok and the Horowitz report, and now Michael Cohen really surprising all of us. And
is that what's holding up your negotiations?
Well, it keeps us away from it, and also the special counsel is kind of tied up, although quietly, in the Manafort, getting ready for the Manafort trial. So we have negotiations going on with them. We have an outstanding offer to them. They haven't responded in about a week to 10 days. I don't hold that against them. I think they got a lot going on like we do.
What does that offer look like?
Well, I can't tell you what the offer looks like, except there is a sort of area of questioning and a group of restrictions on it that we could live with. I think I'd have to reanalyze that in light of the new facts, but I don't think that's going to change it very much.
This is narrow to the Russia probe and not obstruction of justice, or how narrow?
It relates basically to the Russia collusion thing, which we think there's no evidence of the president doing anything wrong, so we don't really have much of a problem with it. With the obstruction thing, it's more a question of we don't see the legal basis for a president obstructing by merely taking an action in firing somebody that he had every right to fire and about 10 good reasons to fire. So we don't just acknowledge the basis for that. But, you know, we might consider a few questions in that area also. But at this point, it's best left to us and them to do that quietly. There's enough going on with the Southern District thing.
When are we going to find out? When are you going to nail this down?
I think maybe this week, maybe next week.
All right. Last time you told us it was July 4th, Mr. Mayor.
Well, a lot happened since July 4th. Peter Strzok, our friend Cohen going rogue. I mean, lots of things.
The New York Times is reporting that special counsel Robert Mueller is looking into whether the president's tweets, I should say, added up to any kind of obstruction of justice here. Have you advised the president not to tweet, at least not to tweet about his attorney general?
Good luck about tweeting. First of all, you know, obstruction by tweet is not something that I think works real well. Generally, obstruction is secret, it's clandestine, it's corrupt. You don't want the evidence out in the public, so it can be used against you. And I've looked at all those tweets, and they don't amount to anything but the man complaining about an unfair investigation, which even if he wasn't the president, he has a First Amendment right to do that. I don't think there's anything there that gets him beyond the First Amendment. And second, a lot of his tweets have been very helpful. The reason he may not have to testify is he's laid out his defense clearly, like this whole Russian thing. He's made it clear he didn't know about the meeting beforehand.
You're talking about the Trump Tower meeting that Michael Cohen apparently now says the president didn't know in advance about. Yeah,
well, I mean, I don't see how you can believe Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen is also the guy that taped him without telling him, taped Chris Cuomo taking his cell phone and putting it in a drawer and saying, I'm not recording it, and then did a 2-hour recording that we now have. He did that at least 4 other times. I mean, to my surprise, he turns out to be almost an instinctual liar. So there's no way this guy's credibility is going to withstand 4 or 5 witnesses saying the exact opposite.
You called him an honest, honorable lawyer just a few weeks ago. Yeah. What changed?
How did I know? Why would I have not thought he was? I mean, I never had a bad dealing with Michael. I was being straight and honest. I didn't know that he taped conversations surreptitiously. I didn't know he would grossly violate the attorney-client privilege. I didn't know he would mislead dozens of reporters and tape them all over the place and pretend to them directly, I'm not recording you.
How much of the evidence that the FBI sees from Michael Cohen's, place of work and residence relates to the president beyond tapes?
Well, let me see if I can make it about as clear as possible. We know of something like 183 unique conversations on tape. One of those is with the President of the United States. That's the 3-minute one involving the McDougal payment, AMI McDougal payment. There are 12 others, maybe 11 or 12 others, out of the 183, in which the president is discussed at any length by Cohen, mostly with reporters. all clearly corroborating what the president has said in detail on many of those tweets. In other words, that he didn't know about the payments to either one when they happened, that he only found out later, that Cohen made them not for the campaign. He didn't like the campaign. He says very derogatory things about the campaign. He said, I only made it because I personally love the president and Melania. And that's why I made the payments, which takes it right out of the campaign contribution arsenal. So these are tapes I want you to read. I want you to hear them. I didn't think I'd be able to get them out publicly, and somehow he and his lawyer have this crazy idea, just throw it all out there. I think they also don't realize it's going to hurt them with the prosecutors. Now, when I was a prosecutor, I don't want some guy giving out all the evidence to the press.
But you do want these tapes released now?
I can't do it. I mean, I'm not allowed to do it. We've not leaked a single tape. I think if you check with the reporters who did the stories, they tell you that. The Times came forward and made that clear. We don't violate these rules. However, we are allowed to refer to them if they put them out. Why they're putting them out, someday somebody is going to have to figure it out.
You mentioned
they're doing it.
You mentioned Karen McDougal. This recording that was made public earlier this week relates to her. She claims she did have a consensual affair with the president. But I want to ask you, beyond this case, beyond Stormy Daniels, were other payments made to as yet unnamed women around the time of the 2016 campaign? There
is a conversation about that on one of the tapes in which I think Chris Cuomo asked him that, and Cohen says no, denies it. Said that there were no other situations like this.
Was that an accurate statement by Cohen?
As far as I know, yeah. I have no evidence to disprove that. And we've searched the records. I mean, remember, both these payments were made, or at least the McDougal payment was going to be made through a corporation. Well, you're hardly going to make an illegal contribution through a corporation. And that whole dispute about check or cash really couldn't have been done any other way but by check. It's a corporation, after all, making the payment.
But you maintain that payment didn't actually occur?
That one didn't happen for reasons, I guess, that AMI wanted to keep it. They probably saw value in keeping it. I mean, I know a lot of people raise questions about it, but it's pretty clear from the tape. This is a straight out and out legal and business transaction.
The CFO for the Trump Organization, Alan Weisselberg, was subpoenaed this week to testify in the criminal probe around Michael Cohen. Does any of this cross that red line that the president has said in terms of touching his own personal finances?
No, I think these are about the things we're talking about to see are they corroborated, and they are. Or they could be about other things that they may have some knowledge of that Cohen was doing independent of the president. I should finish that discussion of the tapes by telling you, yes, there are 183 presidents on one, mentioned on 12 others. There are then an untold number of other tapes that do have no relation to us, meaning President Trump, that have to do, I guess, with what the Southern District originally rated him for. Those tapes, I don't know what's on those. Now, if they related to us, the government would have to give them to us. The government has been totally ethical about this, so I don't believe there's any question. But there's a lot there for them to investigate. And, you know, when you just look at a box, you can't tell what it contains. But I sure wouldn't want to have that box there in the FBI's possession if it was me.
All right, Mr. Mayor, there's always another part to this story. We'll continue to track it here.
Every time I talk to you, it changes.
Well, we look forward to having you on again.